name is Shri. I'm the founder and bag uh, carrier for my daughter, who's a CEO. Um, we manufacture eco packaging, and we've been changing consumer behavior. Over the last 25 years, we've reduced 30 billion plastic bags from coming into the UK environment by bringing in reusable bags, but we extend that to many other products which are reusable.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to start with the first question. The shift towards sustainability has been growing in recent years, with many consumers now seeking out eco-friendly products. How do you think that this is changing the e-commerce landscape, and how do you think brands can balance profitability with sustainability? Do you want to start there?
Sure. So I think with consumers and from an e-com perspective in particular, we're starting to see sustainability really needing to become a hygiene factor at point of sale. And so it's how can we bring sustainability messaging, how can we have sustainability filters, how can we have good quality data that helps that consumer navigate sustainability. And I think the more that we can do to have authentic and purposeful storytelling on our e-com sites, I think that's where we can really engage that consumer and then think about what are the other things we could maybe offer them alongside that purchase. That could be things like green shipping, it could be planting trees at checkout. So there can be ways that we can start the consumer to be aware that as they're purchasing our products, sustainable packaging and other ways of being sustainable can really be built into that consumer experience as well.
Yeah, I mean, as this is an obviously e-commerce summit, I'd like to know more about what you do on your website in order to help consumers make more informed decisions.
So we're quite early on in our journey on e-com in terms of how we're bringing sustainability to life. But what we are starting to look at is how can we filter our products? So how can we put different, we have bio-based paint, which has 50% less carbon than our conventional paint. So how can we flag that at the point of search for a customer so that they can see that and know the benefit and hopefully make that switch to a more sustainable purchase? Because if they're buying that bio-based over the conventional alternative that we offer alongside it, that shows to us that not only can we reduce our carbon, but our consumers purchasing those products can reduce their carbon as well. So I think it's about how can we intelligently work with consumers to let them know what we're offering and how they can also be part of that sustainability journey as well.
Yeah, that's great. And Shri, do you want to talk a bit about changing consumer behavior? Because that's one of the things you guys.
Yes, so changing a consumer behavior is something which we've been doing for 25 years, as I said. It's quite difficult because if you've got to do something like even asking people to bring their reusable bags to the supermarket, people tend to forget. I tend to forget, and it's really a difficult task to change a consumer behavior. Now we've tried to do this in many ways. Right in the beginning, 25 years ago, we brought the first reusable bag for Tesco, which is the trading ladybird. That some people, I can see them nod their head and they still remember that bag, but that was one of the products that we brought. But over the years, what tends to happen is people just get bored. They just get bored carrying the same bag. So we brought in designers. We brought some really beautiful designers designing those bags. And I'm sure you would ask me, how do you then bring designer, really sexy looking products and not also have the problem of price? People want sustainable products, and especially in e-commerce, price point is very, very important. And so we had to persuade the designers that, giving their designs, perhaps even free of cost, is a great idea because they're promoting themselves. And especially in a product like a visible product like a bag, you're carrying a brand and you're almost like you're carrying a billboard in your hand. So that's one point I'd like to make. The second point, which we have been working on, especially in e-commerce, is the amount of packaging involved, the amount of plastic involved, and the amount of waste involved in e-commerce is just monstrous. You order something from any of these big e-commerce sites, the packaging is so big because they've got to transport it, make sure that it arrives safely, and also it doesn't get spoiled. So we've brought in a number of products for e-commerce which are made reusable. So you could have a reusable envelope which is made from cotton or a canvas, which is also waterproof. So we've tried to make that reusable, sustainable, and eco-friendly. So these are the main things that my company has been innovating, and we've really worked with a lot of designers, a lot of people from the industrial design point of view to make sure that the products are sustainable, they're reusable, and at the same time they hit a price point.
I want to go back to your first point about working with designers and making the bags look really good, because I think that's a great way to kind of sell sustainability so that it's not, so that consumers don't feel like they have to make a compromise between buying something that looks good versus something that's sustainable. You're kind of like giving them both. So I'd like you to talk more about your collaboration with London Fashion Festival or some fashion designers.
Yeah. So the first thing that we try to tell the consumers is that you can't use our products in a traditional way that you would, which is to try and multiply it by X, to say that I'm going to make a profit for that. So the problem is that when you start multiplying it in the same way that a retailer would want to make a profit, then it makes the product quite expensive. So the way we try to explain to people is that, look, you are using this product as a walking billboard. So don't try and make a profit in the normal way. Try to use this as a marketing tool, and you should ideally try and sell it at cost. And many retailers sell it at cost. And in fact, the first Ladybird bag that we did for Tesco, they sold it at cost. They understood that. So the point I'm trying to make is that by getting the designers, the consumers like to buy the product. From the point of view of the retailer or the e-commerce company, trying not to make that as a retail product and sell at a retail price. In fact, one of your customers you mentioned, Colart, also sometimes sells our products at cost. I mean, they make beautiful products. I'm sure you're part of that creative, package. So, the advantage in trying to get these innovative decisions in the whole space is what we've been trying to work with. London Fashion Week is one. I mean, people collect those bags. It's made by incredible British designers, and they continue to innovate each year. So it's the innovation in terms of design, innovation in the way we produce, and making it more functional. Just sort of not just carrying a bag for the sake of it, but then making sure that the bags are functional in what they do.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So moving on to the next question, sustainable production offers require significant investment in terms of ethical sourcing, in terms of the materials. Is it possible to create a sustainable business model that thrives financially while still being sustainable?
I think with consumers, they're not going to be the ones who are going to pay for your company's sustainability journey, unfortunately. But I think what we are seeing with consumers, it is becoming a hygiene factor. And so I think we're going to have to start building sustainability into our business models, because otherwise, we're not going to have consumers purchasing from our brands if they're not start seeing those sustainable offerings. So I think we're at that point now where consumers will say one thing but behave differently. But I think that gap is closing. They're starting to behave how they say they're going to behave. But unfortunately, companies are going to have to budget for that and build that into their business plans. But ultimately, if we were to give carbon a cost, so look at the regulation that's coming, the more sustainable we can be and build that into our business models, then the more resilient we are for the long term, and building that in will only cost more in the future. So I think the more that we can do these steps now and build that in now, I think the more cost avoidance we'll have as companies as well. So it's how we think about sustainability in the same lens as how we think about financial business decisions. And I think that's where we'll start to see more companies embedded into how they actually operate as well. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sustainability, when I set up this business many years ago, was just sort of a hippy-dippy kind of a thing. People just talked about it, but as you rightly say, they were not willing to pay for it. But today, I promise you, this is very important for the average consumers. They really feel that a company which is responsible, a company which is sustainable, a company which is ticking all the boxes for the SDGs, is a company they'd like to buy. Now, the next point is, would they pay a massive premium? And that's something we discussed. And they would not pay a massive premium. You agree? That is something which is true. Now, this is where I think we as manufacturers, as industrialists, we would have to look at the manufacturing and see how we could produce a product efficiently. And that requires investment. The issues of manufacturing, if it is too labor-oriented, it is going to be very expensive. And many of the products are manufactured in such old technologies that the ultimate product is expensive. And I explained to you that a simple thing, we are involved in lots of luxury goods. And the luxury leather industry has traditionally been very labor-oriented. Even sticking things, where they fold a particular material and it's glued and then it is stuck, was all done by hand, which meant it's very expensive. It's okay for Christian Dior to do it, Louis Vuitton to do it, but then when you're manufacturing this, especially the the space that we are talking of, it's got to be hitting price points. And that's where we've invested hugely in machines in terms of how can we automate it to make it not just eco-friendly, but also hitting the price points. That's one point I'd like to make. The second point is what we've done, which is what I'd like to announce here today. We've been working with a plant-based leather. As you know, we had leather, and then people said we'd like an alternative to leather. And you must have done a lot of research in this. And they were producing vegan leather. But vegan leather is also made from mainly two products. One is PVC, which is polyvinyl chloride, and the other one is PU, which is polyurethane. Both are chemical-based products. For the first time, we are going to bring out a leather which is patented, which we've got the patent, made from a plant-based material. It looks exactly like leather. And this is going to be made at scale. Again, if you don't make it at scale, it becomes so expensive. It's great to have a little wallet, but then when you're making a big bag, it's got to be really competitive. So the first time we are hoping to launch this in the second half of this year. A leather which looks exactly like leather, feels like leather, but made from a plant-based material. So the point I'm making is when you talk of sustainability and e-commerce and balancing profits and planet, the manufacturing has to be at scale. You can't just make it in a small scale environment, and which is where we have stepped in to constantly produce volumes by automating the whole process.
And do you find that investment pays off financially as well in the long run? Because I'd imagine when you have more sustainable and automated production, it does save you actually cost in the long run.
Yeah, I think it does. We have remained profitable for many years, and I still reject many people who want to buy my business because I wouldn't know what to do if I sold my business. So it is certainly true that it is important that your business model can't compromise on other things. So we have remained profitable, and that is really, which is what I've been trying to say in terms of investment. And you know, the investment, people talk about investment, and I find it really amazing why people don't invest, because you know the kind of allowances that you get in depreciation in terms of allowances, that you know there's no point paying a tax if you can invest that machines. You know, you buy machines which is all deductible through taxes, and the UK tax system is very kind in terms of investments. Investments brings you uh, uh, better efficiency, which makes it more profitable.
Yeah, I want to go back to the point you both touched on about consumer behavior, because Sarah and I were talking before the panel about how consumer behavior and different types of consumers, approach sustainability differently. And you shared your experience about how consumers seek sustainable fashion versus sustainable art supply. So I want to learn more about that.
Yeah, sure. So I used to work in the fashion industry previously, and we saw consumers there starting to make a change, you know, starting to look at beyond just price and opt for more sustainable materials. In the art world, which sits in FMCG, we have artists who want to use the same chemicals that the greats use. So, you know, chemicals which have been banned in recent times because regulatory wise, you know, they're not safe, they're toxic, they pollute the environment. But an artist might want to use that material because Constable used it or someone inspiring used it for them. So our journey with them on sustainability is quite an emotional one. So it's about how do we switch that consumer behaviour to a safer alternative. And that might be through explaining the hazards and the toxic and why something's been removed from our portfolio. But I think ultimately with sustainable and innovation, it's about looking at how we can make sure that when we offer a sustainable alternative, quality and technical performance isn't compromised. And I think that's where we've seen the real benefit is you could buy a genuine cadmium paint from us, but you can buy a cadmium free. And if you did the Coca-Cola Pepsi test, most artists can't tell the difference between the two. And I think this is where sustainable and innovation have to go hand in hand. So we can slowly start that emotional connection with the consumer and start moving them and bringing them on that journey with us when it comes to choosing more sustainable options. With our bio-based paint, that costs us more to manufacture because of the raw materials, but the more that we can, and an artist isn't going to pay more for a bio-based paint versus a conventional paint. So the more that we can bring that artist on the journey of using that paint, the more that we can drive our volumes at scale in economies. And to your point earlier, we can then grow and scale that as well at volume. So therefore, we can roll that out throughout the rest of our portfolio as well. So that sustainable innovation is really about how we bring that consumer on the journey, but also not compromising on quality and performance. And I think that's what the fashion industry started to do as well, is where the materials like cotton and polyester, recycled poly, and all the different plant leather, all the different things out there that have moved from a greenwashing of raw materials to actually having sustainable raw materials. And I think that's where the switch has started to happen.
But do you think that innovation is there for both your art supplies and maybe for leather alternatives? Do you think the innovation is there to make products that are perform exactly the same as traditional materials, or do you think we've still got a couple of years to go?
I think that there are instances out there where the performance is the same and the quality is the same. I think there's still something to get over with that consumer belief of that. We spoke to an artist recently who loved the bio-based paint and actually said, I wish you hadn't told me it was bio-based. You almost want you to make the change and not tell them, because there is somehow this perceived inferior with a sustainable product. And so I think there's something about how do we get over that, and how do we, if we just made the change and not told anyone, would that be better for us than actually talking about it? So I think there's still an interesting thing for us to learn there about what consumer wants as well when it comes to sustainability. Maybe it's they don't want to be told, but I actually think bringing them on that journey, with that particular artist, and understanding why we've brought out a bio-based, and now that they can use that in their work with confidence, and then it does perform the same, because obviously they had no idea it performed in the same way as a conventional paint. I think that can then help it become ambassador and tell more people as well.
Yeah, but I can see how that can be challenging for a company like Colart when you've got a wide range of customers, and some might be very passionate about sustainability, and some, like you said, they probably don't want to know, but just want to buy something that works So talking about greenwashing, I think that ties in well to our next question, that as sustainability becomes more important to consumers, there's also an increasing demand for transparency and honesty about how brands are achieving their environmental goals. How do you think brands can communicate their sustainability initiatives so that it's understandable by the average consumer, but also that it's not greenwashing?
I think there's lots of frameworks out there that consumers are starting to see more and understand more. So I think if you're looking at, how do you start on that journey on sustainability with your consumers, look at the existing frameworks out there. Colart and his brands are B Corp certified. I think consumers are starting to see that more, particularly, in everyday food and consumer items, and therefore that is becoming a brand or a certification they can trust. When it comes to carbon, there's lots of greenwashing schemes out there, but then there's schemes like the Science Based Targets Initiative, where there's a lot of regulation and framework that goes behind some of the claims. So I think there's lots out there that consumers are starting to be aware of. It's still a minefield in consumer understanding. Even just taking science-based targets and thinking about how we engage our colleagues on that, that's a real technical and difficult thing for an employee to understand. And then you've got one step further with a consumer. So I think it's just about what are the recognised frameworks out there. How can what's your role in education, whether that's on the website in terms of taking some time and space to explain what B Corp means or what science-based target means. And I think the consumers as well are really engaged in this now. I know when I worked in fashion, they would really know everything about the materials they were buying a lot of the time. They could call you out if they thought it was greenwashing. So I think there's an assumption that consumers need education, but actually we're seeing consumers are really educating businesses now as well. So I think it's a really exciting time to be looking at this.
Yeah, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, I don't know whether if any of you know about the EU. There's an EU digital passport. Does anybody know about it? So this EU digital passport is going to become a must, which would show the whole traceability of the product. We, Bags of Ethics Supreme Creations, have a digital passport on all our products. So you could get the full traceability of where the product has originated. For example, if it's raw material, which is the cotton, where does it come from? The chemicals, and as you rightly point out, we have chemicals which are certified, which is eco-friendly. So the digital passport is one great initiative that I would really hope everybody has to implement this in this country. The other is the complete, you've got to be very transparent in your entire supply chain. We do this in various forms, and many of our customers, we've given them the option of seeing the entire production process. So we get the entire production videoed, and they have that as part of their product, and they can use that in their own social media. I'm not sure if you had any of our products which was given to you through CasArts, which is the full video of the production. So that makes the product more transparent. The third is we welcome many of our customers to come to our factory, and we sometimes even pay for their visit, so they can see for themselves that whatever claims we are making is true. For example, I saw this big smile on Darya's face when I said 80% of our employees are women, and she gave a big smile, and I think that's something which is a fact. And so when they come to see our factory, it is not just a claim. You'll see that for yourself. So there are many of these, and we talked about B Corp. We are about to be B Corp certified. We are CEDEX audited. We have various audits from the big stores like Marks and Spencer or Tesco's or Sainsbury's. All these people have audited us. So there is a full transparency in terms of the way we manufacture things, like we are into very sustainable power supplies. Much of our building has got natural light coming in, so we don't even need air conditioning. We can work with sort of the winds coming through, and so there are lots of initiatives that we've taken to make sure that we're not just simply saying that we are sustainable, and the actual manufacturing is truly sustainable.
Yeah, I love what you said there, because I think it really sounds like you've kind of thought about sustainability all the way through your production, and not just have like a range that says this is made from recycled materials and calling yourself like a sustainable brand. And in the last e-commerce summits there, somebody said that the way that she sees the future of sustainability is that instead of having a sustainability department, we have people that are aware of sustainability throughout the entire company, and so that you're really building products, producing products with sustainability, just built into them.
And you see what we have today, because of the social media, how fast things go out. You really have to be authentic, and if you're not authentic, you can be really slammed by the social media when you are not manufacturing or you're not doing what you're saying. So I think that has also impacted quite considerably today on that. And also, I'd like to make you an offer. When you told me that you supply to Colart, who are our customers, each year, as I said, we take people to our factory. And this year, at the end of March, we're taking a number of customers to do a sustainability course. It's a course by a leading professor in America and also London Business School. So if you would like to come, I'd be delighted to.
Exclusive here, you heard it here first. That'd be great, thank you.
My next question is about kind of how seeing sustainability as something that is like a journey. So sustainability is an ongoing journey for many brands with continuous improvement and innovation needed to meet environmental goals. How can companies embrace this mindset of continuous improvement? Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think where we're really focusing at the moment is we're thinking about the products we produce and the consumers in mind. So one thing that we're looking at as part of our sustainable innovation is how can we create a sustainable product index? So when our brand teams are looking at innovating a new product, what's that rating from a sustainability lens, so that if it's a certain level, it should never be allowed to get made because it's not sustainable enough. And then we can also retrofit our portfolio and look back and say, what would that be rated at, and what would we need to do to improve its score? But then, I'm always trying to think ahead and thinking like, how would we then translate that potentially to our consumers? Would we have our sustainable product ratings on our websites or at point of purchase? So that's just something that is still in the infancy of navigating. But I think the more that we can build that into how we operate and how we design products, I think that's really key. When we look at our manufacturing, we have our own factories, and so we're signed up to science-based targets. We've got net zero targets, so our operations are looking at that and aligning that, and our procurement are working with our suppliers and our raw materials. But it's important that we look at every part of our touch point of our products, and that's also about how we make choices as a business, and that's where our brand teams will hopefully be able to use this tool to help them make the choices about what products they develop and bring forward, and then ultimately how we then think about telling that message to the consumer as well.
One of the things which I wondered is that in food, you have this messaging with the traffic light signals in terms of, how sustainable, what is that particular food that is being sold. And I'm just wondering that if we could have a similar sort of messaging in terms of a traffic light signal, in terms of defining how sustainable a particular product is, that might help consumers, understand and make choices. So if there are two products, one more sustainable and it's got a green light, and the other one which is a little cheaper but it's got a red light, the consumer then can have the choice as to whether which one to buy. So I think this traffic signal, making it simple, not too complicated. People just get really muddled if you overcomplicate the issue, but just simple messaging for consumers to understand. Because consumers today really are concerned. It's not something which they hear about in conferences like this. When you have massive floods, massive fire, these are real issues. People have lost lives, people have lost their possessions because of climate crisis. And climate today is a direct result of having unsustainable uh, 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 things that we're doing. And one of the things that many people may not even realize, that our population has grown. In 1850, we just had 1 billion people on Earth. I mean, just 1 billion. Over millions of years, we came from 0 to 1 billion. In the last 150 to 200 years, we've gone from 1 billion to 8 billion. It's just monstrous. We've got so many people on Earth. What happens then? You've got to feed so many people. You've got to transport so many people. All those make the entire process, the food production, the communication, there's so much of steel, so much of aluminum, so much of everything that has to be produced. All that is a burden on nature. The amount of industrial way we produce animals, which causes a huge amount of carbon in the atmosphere. So really, people are now realizing that it's not just a topic for the universities, but they are getting affected themselves. So they're saying, how do I do anything directly which involves anything to do with sustainability? And they're voting with their feet.
I think that ties in very well into our next question about what tips would you give to retailers who are sitting in this room about how they can, incorporate sustainability into their business models?
I think it's such a complex and broad subject, it can be a bit overwhelming for people at times, but I think just focusing in on, maybe picking a couple of products or a couple of SKUs where you've got something to say and thinking about what's the things that you want to say and what data would you need to back up so that you could say that with confidence. So thinking about how you can validate and verify the claims that you want to make, and then just start doing it. I think that we can always wait for the perfect time that the business will, devote everything to sustainability and build it into the business plans. And that's fantastic if you're working in companies where that happens. But if it doesn't, you can be a sustainability ambassador in the role that you have in how you bring the sustainability messages that you want to your consumer from e-com.
Well, as far as we are concerned, we've been badgering about sustainability and trying to tell people use our reusable bags, reusable products. We have something like about 20 products which are reusable, not just bags, but water bottles, coffee cups, and T-shirts. They're all products which are sustainably made, which help the environment, but it's also well priced, well designed. So I think if anyone needs any of those, then do come to us, and we'll be delighted to maybe offer a 10% discount for coming to this conference. I'm on record.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.